Forza Horizon 6 mixtape, vampire crawlers replaced. 2026 has brought an amazing range of eclectic titles to Xbox Game Pass already, but that's nothing compared to what the back half of the year has in store for us. Feast your eyes on every day one Xbox Game Pass release still to come. Okay, let's kick it off with some Xbox Game Studio goodness that is honestly bringing us back to LAN nights with the gang. You remember pizza parties, fizzy pop, and maybe just a touch of vitamin D deficiency. On July 28th, Halo is taking us back to where it all began with Campaign Evolved. This shiny new version of the iconic original campaign has been given a total visual overhaul and a ton of quality of life improvements, but that's just the beginning. Features, enemies, and weapons from later Halo games have been worked in and brand new missions added, making this both the ideal nostalgia trip and a perfect starting point for those who didn't play the original. Best of all, Halo Campaign Evolved also allows players to recreate the split-screen experience that formed core gaming memories for so many Xbox players back in the day, as well as the option to team up online if you and your old Spartan squad are further apart these days. If you're more of a fan of the thickest necks in gaming, then Gears of War E-Day is bringing those barrel-chested bad boys back in style. The prequel takes the series' classic brand of crunchy cover-based shooting and applies it to a very different environment. Rather than guiding a heavily armed team of elite soldiers through an endless battlefield, you'll be blasting your way through a world that looks a lot like our own, while playing as just regular dudes, using whatever comes to hand to stay alive while all hell breaks loose around them. I mean, they're extremely jacked regular dudes who look like they breakfast on crumpled bricks and bits of tire iron, but, you know, still regular dudes. Anyway, it's a really exciting bit of the Gears story that we can't wait to explore when ED arrives Xbox exclusive and day one on Xbox Game Pass on October 6th. But back to July, and we've got 6 other games dropping with a flavor for everyone. Ascent to Zero, Dench Attack, Tears of Metal, Mistfall Hunter, Shift at Midnight, and Speedrunners 2. Ascent to Zero looks like an action-packed adventure that has you slicing and dicing your way through crowds of enemies, unlocking new gear as you go to craft your own deadly playstyle. But whatever weapon you choose, the most deadly tool at your disposal is the ability to freeze time Burner's Watch style. If you loved fast-paced, combat-heavy roguelites like Hades, you should definitely check out Ascent to Zero on July 13th. Dench Attack takes the combo poppin' high score bustin' action of games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and then it takes it in a totally different direction. You can tear through a vibrant anime world full of bizarre characters, and take on rival gangs, and take down shady megacorps, all through the elegant art of train skating. Dench Attack feels like a bit of a spiritual successor to retro gems like Jet Set Radio. Plus, it also just looks like a crazy good time, and it hits Xbox Game Pass on July 15th. Arriving on July 22nd, Tears of Metal is a medieval roguelike that has you leading a Scottish battalion through hordes of enemies on a quest to reclaim their homeland. Oh my gosh, it's Scottish! As your campaign wages on, you'll be able to recruit new soldiers, improve your current ones, and build settlements where you can fortify yourselves even more. Tears of Metal is a co-op game too, so you and your buddies can work together to send those dastardly invaders homewards to think again. But what about a game that combines the get-in, get-out thrills of marathon and art graders with a whole different genre? Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mistfall Hunter. Coming to Game Pass on July 30th, Mistfall Hunter is an action RPG set in a dark fantasy realm. Pick your class, pick your weapon, and delve into an ever-mutating world where new dangers lurk around every corner. By combining physical attacks with magical powers, you'll be able to take down even the most monstrous foes, especially if you team up with a couple of other players. Shift at Midnight is a bit like another title that hit Game Pass this year, Roadside Research. In that, it's a first-person gas station sim with a supernatural twist. You and 2 other friends take turns putting in the hours at a small gas station, tending to the customers and keeping the shelves neat and tidy. Except that some of your customers are not what they appear. Play detective to try and figure out who's only pretending to be human, and get ready to run, hide, and fight for your lives when the mask finally slips. Shift at Midnight's arrival on Game Pass is expected to arrive sometime in July, as is Speedrunners 2, King of Speed. If you honed your skills on 2D platformers like Celeste and Super Meat Boy, this is the perfect place to show them off. You can rely on your reflexes and your wall jumping skills to leave your rivals in the dust, or take advantage of powerful pickups to freeze, trap, and explode the other runners so that you've got a clear path to victory. Just do whatever it takes to stay in front, because anyone who lags behind will quickly find themselves getting burnt to a crisp. Highly accessible, but with a super high skill ceiling, Speedrunners 2 King of Speed is the perfect multiplayer game and is coming to Xbox Game Pass this July. August has a trio of confirmed games from Game Freak, Blumhouse Games, and a new Plague Tale game that is shaping up to be their most brutal yet. Game Freak's new game is day one on Xbox Game Pass on August 4th, complete with a combat system that should definitely make Claire Obscure fans sit up and take notice. Beast of Reincarnation is an action RPG that takes a woman and her dog on a journey through post-apocalyptic Japan. With its lush forest filled with rusty robots and mystical creatures, there's a real Studio Ghibli vibe to this place, though I wouldn't count on meeting any big friendly Totoros. When it's time to throw down, you'll fight directly with Emma and her sword while giving commands to her canine companion, Koo. So it's a little bit turn-based, a little bit real-time, and a lot bit exciting. Grave Seasons is a cozy farming sim coming August 14th, where you do all that typical cozy Stardew Valley type stuff, you know, planting crops, raising animals, romancing your neighbors, and trying to figure out who keeps murdering everyone. All very typical stuff. The really cool thing about Grave Seasons is that you actually get to decide how fussed you are about saving folks from the supernatural entity that keeps offing everyone. You can harness all your scavenging and crafting skills to protect the village, or you can just keep your eyes on your bean sprouts and whatever happens, happens. The story will evolve in different ways according to your choices, so there's no wrong option, just a few not very nice ones. And then on August 27th, Resonance: A Plague Tale Legacy sees a fierce young plunderer traveling to the Minotaur's Island to find out whether the stories about it were just a load of bull. On the one hand, you'll find everything you've come to expect from a Plague Tale game. A compelling heroine, gorgeous visuals, a bloody curse, and an epic slice of historical fantasy for a story. But this is also a real departure for the series, both in terms of the story, which whisks us away to another part of the world, another place in history, and a whole new cast of characters, and gameplay, with a much bigger emphasis on direct combat and a sweet new time-shifting mechanic. Along comes September with what looks like a pretty sweet quartet of new games so far, including a much anticipated sequel. It starts with some pretty mind-bending stuff on September 10th with a game about a game within a game, Screenbound. This ingenious platformer blends 2D and 3D gameplay, so if you were all about the plucky squire, get this one on your list right now. The story here is that you found an old handheld console in your mom's garage, which turns out to have magic reality splitting abilities. The handheld, that is, not the garage, but I'm sure that's lovely too. You'll be controlling both the actions of the character holding the handheld out in the 3D world and the ones taking place on its 2D screen. And you'll be doing it at the very same time. Of course, things work differently in 2D land than they do in the three-dimensional world, and those differences will be the key to defeating enemies and solving puzzles. If giant worms and harsh desert terrain are more your vibe, Dune Awakening is erupting out of the sands of time to Game Pass Ultimate on the 22nd. This is an open world survival game that challenges players to stay alive in the land of Shai-Hulud and Shalamaze, Arrakis. The desert planet is a tricky place to survive, but you do have plenty of options for how you go about that. Craft weapons, assemble vehicles, work on your swordsmanship, or master the voice. Build an elaborate stronghold or rough it out in the dunes, play alone or with other players. It's all up to you. It'll also be available on Game Pass for both console and PC. It's the ideal game for Rust or Ark Survival Evolved fans looking to spice things up. And thanks to Xbox Play Anywhere, you can enjoy full cross progression as you move between platforms. Nice. On September 24th, players will get to experience the full horrors of the Napoleonic Wars in Valor Mortis. And to think, all that because someone wanted to serve 3 flavors of ice cream together? Valor Mortis is a new first-person Souls-like actioner from the creators of Ghost Runner. So naturally, the combat here is absolutely brutal as players dash, parry, and combine a range of weapons with a few bits of magical trickery to take down their foes. Or retake them down, I guess, because these soldiers aren't regular soldiers and Valor Mortis actually takes place during a version of the Napoleonic Wars where a sinister plague has turned everyone into undead abominations. Probably should have mentioned that up top, sorry. The children long for the Minecraft dungeons. Which is why a second game is coming day one to Xbox Game Pass on September 29th. The first game laid the nice blocky groundwork, and now Minecraft Dungeons 2 is going to build it out with richer RPG mechanics that allow players to really express themselves with their playstyles, as well as a beautiful new interconnected world for them to explore. But for all its new complexity, Minecraft Dungeons 2 promises to be just as accessible as the first, so you'll be able to tag in any of your friends to all go dungeon crawling together. Yay! And now, a few games announced for the big scary month of October, aside from the big Gears return I mentioned earlier. In fact, in perhaps the complete opposite of Gears, we've also got Forever Ago coming a couple of days later on the 8th. Forever Ago is a narrative game about a road trip that has it all. Profound life lessons, a romance for the ages, a soundtrack stacked with evocative tunes, and of course, a dog you can pet. You'll be playing as a man named Alfred who heads north hoping to find redemption, or at least some very nice trees. Either way, you'll be able to memorialize your findings with your trusty camera and to do the odd bit of environmental puzzle solving. With its charming, cel-shady visuals, banging tunes and moving story, Forever Ago comes straight to Xbox Game Pass on October 8th. In fall, we have Deep Dish Dungeon. It's a bit like Valheim with a case of the munchies, and it'll be a mouth-watering prospect for players who love a bit of co-op dungeon crawling. Curiosity is key here as you go wandering through a vast dungeon filled with secrets, mysteries, and the sort of valuable little bits and pieces that you can use for crafting. Of course, there are also plenty of traps and enemies around too, so explore carefully. When you've wandered far enough, bring everything back to your base camp and use what you've scavenged to whip up a tasty meal, unlocking more recipes the further you progress. A dungeon crawling game with a major foodie component? The odds on me not liking that are gastronomical. Got to try stand-up. In winter of 2026, a romantic trip to Paris is on the cards. I mean, the place has fallen into decay and has been overrun by bloodthirsty demons, but still, Paris! This is Armistice, a third-person shooter where players combine powerful weapons and celestial powers to scythe their way through one monstrous foe after another, and then die! And then come back to do more scything, yay! The roguelite format combined with this endlessly varied combat promises to make Armistice properly Moorish. If you've been trying to find a new game to scratch that remnant itch, this might be the one for you. So, those are the ones that are semi-dated, or at least have a season, but there are some others with 2026 release dates that we don't know quite when will hit this year. There are 8 games here, including a haunted house renovation sim, a raccoon postie, and an El Presidente simulator. At Fate's End promises to have us all fighting with our family, and not just because it's my turn on the Xbox. The new game from the creators of Spiritfarer and 33 Immortals is kind of like a combination of the two, merging the emotive storytelling from one with the vicious combat of the other, and naturally it's got some gorgeous painterly visuals to go on the side too. Players will work their way through their family tree, taking on each relative in a confrontation that's both a verbal sword fight and an actual, literal sword fight using actual swords. Now, I used to dread the end of summer as much as anyone, but I'm actually pretty excited about going back to school this September with Escape Academy 2! This time around, not only do we get a whole new campus to explore, but we've got the run of the place because Escape Academy 2 is the world's first open world escape room game. Head into any classroom and you'll find yourself locked up with a devious puzzle to solve, complete with a nice hazard like a spike pit or a plunging drop to give you a little bit of extra motivation. Escape Academy 2 Back to School also features both online and local co-op, because 2 heads are better than 1. Until the spike pit gets them anyway. Then it doesn't make too much of a difference. Moonlighter 2 is also coming to Game Pass this year. The main loop here is simple. Dive down into the monster-laden depths beneath your village and return with all sorts of trinkets to sell in your little shop. Better trinkets fetch more money, which gets you better gear, which lets you explore further and get you better trinkets, and so on. Grow your business, grow your town, get to know your neighbors, and perhaps even find love. After all, who could say no to a brave adventurer who owns a small business? Moonlighter 2 is actually available right now in game preview form on PC, with the full release and the console version set to arrive later this year. There's also Tanuki Pond Summer, in which players will get to try out the job I've always dreamed of getting, magical hat-wearing raccoon. Although I guess he's actually employed by the postal office, so you'll be using your trusty bicycle to deliver packages all around a charming little village. The balance of delivery work, exploration, and social stuff is sure to win over fans of Dave the Diver, especially those who'd rather stay on dry land. There's lots of work to do, but naturally you're also going to find plenty of time to make new friends, pull off sweet bike tricks, and perhaps even play the odd game of baseball. Who knows? For a magical hat-wearing raccoon, all things are possible. Also checking into Hotel Game Pass in 2026 is There Are No Ghosts at the Grand. This is one game you definitely won't confuse with anything else. It's a first-person renovation sim like the House Flipper games, but it's also a paranormal investigation game. So you'll divide your time between replastering walls and running after poltergeists. And it's also a musical, so be prepared for the people you meet to burst into song at any given moment. Bursting with personality, packed with great tunes, and just adorably weird, There Are No Ghosts at the Grand is one of those games that you just have to check out. Tropico 7 is also coming too. Tropical games have always given players the power to shape the world around them, and that's going to be literally true in Tropico 7 thanks to an awesome new terraforming tool. When you're not moving mountains just for the fun of it, you'll get to guide your nation through 5 distinctive campaigns, exploring the largest islands in the series' history along with 20 sandbox maps. Of course, it's not all going to be smooth sailing, and it will be up to you whether to lead with honesty and integrity or to crush dissenters, quash free speech, rig the elections, and funnel all the country's wealth into your own personal account. Frankly, second option sounds a lot less stressful. Coming to Xbox on PC in 2026, Vaunted is a tactical RPG starring a trio of space criminals who have one thing in common: you can't believe a single word that they say. As you play through the game, you'll be duking it out with mercenaries and bounty hunters, making friends and finding enemies everywhere you go. But each of the 3 central characters will have their own version of events, as you swap between them, giving you the chance to continually rewrite the story as you go. And on top of all that narrative trickery, Vaunted also features a combat system that blends turn-based XCOM-ish tactics with real-time shooting in a way that's very Valkyria Chronicles, and very, very satisfying. Finally, if you've known that helpful witch in a sleepy picturesque town was the only career path for you ever since you first saw Kiki's delivery service, then you have no choice but to play Witchbrook. This witchy life sim lets players immerse themselves in a dynamic world where they'll go to school to master the magical arts, then use those skills to help the locals and earn money. Because all the eldritch knowledge in the world won't help if you don't have that grind set. Best of all, Witchbrook is a co-op affair, allowing up to 4 players to work on their witchcrafts together. Ideal for Stardew Valley fans trying to recapture the magic. So there you have it. That is every day one Xbox game currently on the way in 2026. Well, there's plenty of the year still to go. Hit the comments to let me know which one you're most excited about, and be sure to subscribe for even more Xbox news. Bye!